When your star is rising, you can do no wrong as a big Hollywood actor. Until you do, that is. Like diss your previous projects, or go on an offensive rant, or choose really awful movies. Then those big producers stop knocking on your door. 10 famous actors Hollywood won't cast anymore. Jessica Biel. Jessica Biel might have won big in her personal life, marrying Justin Timberlake and having baby Silas, but the actress's professional life hasn't been so peachy. She showed promise in the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, but what followed was a series of supporting love interest roles and movies like Total Recall and I Now Pronounce You Chuck and Larry, which earned her Golden Raspberry Award nominations. It didn't help that she reportedly lost out to Anne Hathaway for big roles not once but twice. She missed out on being Catwoman in The Dark Knight Rises and Fantine in Les Miserables. Still, she's opened a restaurant in LA called Oh Fudge. That'll keep her busy. Mel Gibson. Mel Gibson's star was shining so bright after starring in huge hits like Braveheart and the Lethal Weapon franchise. But his fall from grace proves you only need one bad move to destroy a career. Mel's meltdown in 2010 was the beginning of the end. His racist comments turned the viewing public and movie bigwigs against him. His roles that followed were not up to the promise of his earlier successes. Who would rate The Expendables 3 as their favorite movie? No one, that's who. He even picked up a Razzie nomination for it. Perhaps there'll come a time when producers and audiences will move on from Mel's previous mistakes. Eddie Murphy. Eddie Murphy was flying high in the 80s and 90s. Who didn't love Beverly Hills Cop? His brand of humor was popular with audiences. The Nutty Professor and Dr. Dolittle were both the right side of wacky comedy. But you know what's the wrong side of wacky comedy? Norbit. That's what. It was so bad he won 3 Razzies for his various parts: Worst Actor, Worst Supporting Actress, and Worst Supporting Actor. His proper award nominations really dried up after that shocker in 2007. Taylor Lautner. The Twilight Saga was the perfect springboard for Taylor Lautner, but he just couldn't escape Jacob's shadow. He waited until after the franchise finished before trying to launch himself into other roles, but it was too little, too late. Abduction should have been his big entrance into the next phase of his career, but it bombed at the box office and with the critics. His huge salaries were reportedly the death knell of movies being shelved. Some accused him of having some showmances with co-stars like Lily Collins, Micah Monroe, and Marie Avgeropoulos, but his career might have a reboot with comedy roles. Fingers crossed, Taylor. Cameron Diaz. There's no denying Cameron Diaz has been a huge star, but her career hasn't gone quite as well as it should have. She had big successes with movies as diverse as Shrek, Being John Malkovich, and There's Something About Mary, but then things turned R-rated. We're talking Bad Teacher and Sex Tape. But Cameron still racks up those column inches, so there's obviously still interest from a dedicated fan base. With a couple of fantastic roles, she could get close to the top of casting agents' lists again. John Travolta. Oh, John Travolta, where did it go wrong? Oh yes, that's right. In 2000, with Battlefield Earth, the glory days of Saturday Night Fever and then Pulp Fiction were well and truly over when John went down that route. Not only did he star in the movie that was based on Scientology founder L. Ron Hubbard's novel, he also produced it, and what followed was a shadow of his former glory. Direct-to-video movies, cameos, and ensemble films, and his bizarre gaffes, of course, like that awkward kiss with Scarlett Johansson at the Oscars in 2015? Cringe. Nicolas Cage. Who didn't love Nicolas Cage in The Rock? The actor was at the top of his game for an impressive decade, from the mid-1990s to the mid-2000s. He starred in hits like Con Air, Face Off, Adaptation, and Lord of War. But with The Wicker Man in 2006 and then Ghost Rider, things took a turn for the worse. In fact, it wasn't until 2007 that Nicolas started earning Razzie nominations, and boy did they start racking up. Hugh Grant. It's a bit difficult to cast Hugh Grant as the lovable English gent when his real life isn't so straightforward. Of course, there was that lewd conduct incident with Divine Brown in 1995, but the 4 weddings and a funeral actor apologized and came back from his fall from grace with lots of stellar movies. But then his personal life got complicated when he had 4 children in the span of 4 years. Leapfrogging the births with 2 different women, Hugh had a fling with Ting Lin Hong, and they had a daughter, Tabitha, in September 2011. Then, in September 2012, he had a son, John, with Swedish girlfriend Anna Eberstein. Just a few months later, Tinglin gave birth to their son, Felix. And then in December 2015, Anna gave birth to their daughter. Keeping up, after a series of box office bombs, perhaps Hugh will enjoy success professionally again in 2016, Florence Foster Jenkins. Sean William Scott. The success of American Pie catapulted Sean William Scott into the public eye, and a string of roles followed. But were they all critically acclaimed? Not so much. Dude, Where's My Car and The Dukes of Hazzard weren't exactly well received. And then there are his box office bombs, which didn't earn back the huge amounts spent out on them. Movies like Southland Tales and Bulletproof Monk. You're more likely to hear Scott rather than see him now, with him voicing Crash in the Ice Age franchise. Perhaps he got typecast. Perhaps he didn't court the fame enough, but perhaps the revival of Goon will point his career in a good direction again. Katherine Heigl. Katherine Heigl was top of her game in 2007, even winning an Emmy for her role in Grey's Anatomy. She starred in box office hit Knocked Up, but a series of unfortunate events saw her career come crashing down. She withdrew her name from Emmy contention the following year, saying the material she was given wasn't good enough. She then dissed Knocked Up for being sexist, and movie insiders claimed Katherine and her mother manager were difficult on set. She also went through a line of publicists. No wonder she struggled to get cast in big movies again. Whose career do you think took the biggest nosedive? Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe to The Taco.